For many years, the great alien Armada moved through space like a force no one could argue with. They didn't rule through fear or destruction. They simply won every challenge with such ease that no one even tried to stand against them anymore. Their ships were fast, beautifully coordinated, and always prepared. Even distant regions of the galaxy accepted their authority because it felt pointless to resist, something that always stayed 10 steps ahead. Travelers talked about their unmatched control. Traders told stories of how the Armada never lost a single confrontation. Every young pilot wanted to see their ships at least once, just to understand how perfection looked in motion, because of this long record of success. The Armada slowly came to believe that nothing new existed in the galaxy that could surprise them. They thought they had mapped every threat, every rival, every unknown. Their confidence was not arrogance at first, just experience. But over time, that confidence grew into something stronger, something that felt like certainty. It was as if they believed the universe had nothing left to teach them. That belief changed on a quiet day in a neutral sector that almost no one visited. A patrol team, doing nothing more than routine checks, detected something strange. There was a ship sitting alone in the middle of a calm region of space. It wasn't hiding. It wasn't moving. It wasn't even trying to mask its signals. It was simply there, floating peacefully, almost as if placed intentionally in the center of an invisible circle dot. At first, the patrol team thought it was a mistake, maybe a meteor signature, a leftover probe, or a lost cargo vessel. But when they zoomed in, the image became perfectly clear. It was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. Smooth lines, balanced curves, and a kind of quiet presence that didn't match any known design. It looked simple, but simple in a way that felt deliberate, like everything unnecessary had been removed. The Armada analysts tried every database, every archive, every old signal record, yet nothing came close to matching it. The patrol team sent the data back to Central Command. Even they didn't understand what they were looking at. The more officers examined the scans, the more questions appeared. Who built it? Why was it here? How could something this unfamiliar exist in a galaxy the Armada believed they understood completely? A reconnaissance group was sent to investigate. They approached carefully, expecting some kind of reaction. Most unknown ships scanned back or changed position, or at least adjusted their trajectory when approached. But this ship remained still, silent, balanced as if anchored by something invisible. When the reconnaissance ships got close enough, the mysterious vessel finally spoke. A clear, calm voice came through their communication system. It didn't sound mechanical or threatening. It simply identified itself as a Terran battleship. The word Terran meant nothing to the Armada. It wasn't a species they had met, not a civilization they knew, not even a rumor they recognized. The idea that an unfamiliar group could build something this advanced unsettled them. If someone had entered the galaxy unnoticed, what else had the Armada missed? Officers observing the encounter whispered theories. Some believed the ship was a scout from a distant realm. Others thought it was an experiment, maybe even a drifting relic. But the Terran vessel's voice didn't sound old or damaged. It sounded alert and very aware. When the reconnaissance officers asked why it was there, the Terran ship answered politely. It said it was conducting a non-invasive observational survey. Those words confused the Armada. Who surveys a region belonging to the most powerful fleet without asking for permission? It didn't sound like a threat, but it didn't sound like something harmless either. More Armada ships arrived, surrounding the quiet vessel. The commanders wanted to make sure they understood what was happening before making any decision. Their formation grew tighter and tighter, forming a ring around the mysterious ship. But at no point did the Terran battleship make any sudden moves. It remained at the perfect center of the region, as if gravity itself was keeping it there. The closer the Armada got, the more unusual things they noticed. The ship's surface didn't show the usual signs of wear, scratches, or repairs. Its energy readings were steady, so steady it felt unnatural. It didn't produce the bursts or fluctuations that normal engines created. Instead, it maintained a soft glow, like a heartbeat that never changed rhythm. A sense of curiosity began to spread among the Armada's crew. Some officers felt an unexpected calm near the ship, like its presence had a soothing effect. Others felt nervous, not because they expected danger, but because they could not understand the technology in front of them. It challenged everything they believed about space, engineering, and themselves. Finally, the Armada followed procedure. They sent warnings in a firm but respectful tone, requesting the Terran ship to move away from the area. These warnings were part of their standard rules. They didn't want conflict, but they expected their authority to be recognized. The Terran ship responded gently, saying it would not enter restricted zones and had no interest in interfering with anyone. It repeated that it was conducting an observational survey and assured them that its mission involved no harm. That answer made the Armada more confused. Explorers usually announce themselves long before entering foreign regions. But this ship simply appeared, as if it had traveled in a way they couldn't detect. Analysts studied the signal and realized something else. The Terran ship's communication system was extremely advanced. The voice quality was perfect. There was no static, no delay, no interference. It felt like the ship was speaking from right beside them, even though it kept its distance. Hours passed, and the Armada ships continued to gather around the vessel. From a distance, it almost looked like a circle of shining metal around a single calm point of light. Pilots inside their cockpits whispered to each other, wondering if this was the first sign of a new civilization or something even more mysterious. Just when it seemed nothing else would happen, the Terran ship released a soft wave of energy. It moved slowly like a ripple across the surface of a pond. There was no sound, no force, nothing sharp or frightening. But as the wave passed through the Armada's ships, their sensors flickered. Not off, not damaged, just momentarily paused. It was as if the Terran vessel pressed a single button and made the entire fleet hold its breath for 2 seconds. Everyone in the Armada felt that pause. It wasn't dangerous, but it was powerful. It was a demonstration of precision unlike anything they had witnessed. Their ships were known for their stability, yet this single Terran wave gently touched all of them at once without disrupting a single system permanently. Officers looked around in silence. No one panicked, but everyone knew that nothing like this had ever happened before. It wasn't an attack, it didn't even feel close to one. Instead, it felt like the Terran ship was saying, "We understand your technology. Here is a small sample of ours." After that moment, the Armada tightened their formation, not because they wanted to threaten the Terran ship, but because they were trying to understand it better. They were looking at the unknown, something that could shift the meaning of everything they believed. And the Terran ship simply remained there, glowing softly, making no attempt to move or escape. As more analysts arrived, they noticed something else. The ship did not appear to be built for conquest. Its design was too peaceful, too balanced. It didn't have heavy external weapons or intimidating armor. Instead, it looked like a vessel designed with intention, with clarity, with purpose. And so, without a single shot fired or a single aggressive action taken, the Armada realized they were facing something entirely new. Visitor that challenged them not through force, but through simple, undeniable presence. By the time night cycles passed on the Armada's homeworld, every commander, every analyst, every strategist was watching the situation unfold. They all wanted the same answer. Who were the Terrans, and why had they arrived now? No one knew yet, but one thing was clear. The Terran Battleship had appeared in their quiet corner of the galaxy and changed everything without even trying. The Armada felt an unfamiliar sensation and certainty, and that was only the beginning. The arrival of the Terran Battleship spread across the Armada like a quiet storm. No alarms were raised, but everyone felt something shifting. It was the first time in many generations that the fleet faced something they couldn't fully explain. The ship stayed in its place, calm and steady, like it had all the time in the universe. Meanwhile, the Armada prepared for their highest leaders to arrive. Every crew member knew that when the leaders came in person, the situation had become important. When the command vessels reached the sector, they slowed down almost as if they too felt the strange presence of the Terran ship. It wasn't fear, more a deep awareness that they were stepping into something unusual. From their windows, they saw the same sight the patrol team had first seen, a single, smooth, perfectly balanced ship surrounded by layers of Armada vessels. It looked peaceful, like a quiet island in a sea of restless waves. The leaders opened communication with their officers and asked for a full report. They listened to how the ship communicated politely, how it didn't move even once, and how it had released a harmless energy wave that touched every Armada vessel without causing real disruption. None of this matched the behavior of an invading force. Yet none of it explained why the ship was there, so the leaders did something simple. They sent a direct message to the Terran vessel and asked for a proper conversation, not warnings, not short replies. They wanted to understand. They wanted to know the purpose behind this silent arrival. After a brief pause, the Terran ship responded with calm clarity. It said it was finally ready to share its intentions. Every screen inside the Armada's command room lit up at the same moment. Officers leaned forward, pilots stayed completely still, and analysts prepared to record everything. The Terran ship explained that humanity had recently discovered a safe, new form of propulsion that allowed them to travel enormous distances without disturbing space or leaving harmful effects behind. The ship wasn't a war machine. It was a testing vessel sent to explore distant regions and make sure their new travel methods didn't harm the natural structure of the galaxy. It wasn't surveying the Armada, it was surveying space itself. This explanation removed some tension but created new curiosity. The leaders of the Armada had built their reputation on strength and control. They knew every rival civilization in their region. But now there was a new visitor who didn't act like a rival, didn't ask for territory, and didn't fear them. That alone made the Terrans both fascinating and mysterious. To better understand this strange ship, the Armada decided to run harmless tests. They scanned it with different types of energy. They tried to analyze its hull. They sent tiny waves, signals, and small adjustments from a safe distance. None of these were attacks. They were simple ways to measure and compare. What surprised them was how the Terran ship responded to each test. Whenever the Armada sent a scan, the Terran ship gently adjusted its energy flow to show how it worked. It didn't resist. It didn't hide anything. It responded with precision, as if guiding them through a demonstration. The leaders watched all this with growing interest. It was as if the Terrans weren't afraid of being understood. They seemed confident in their technology, not because it was powerful, but because it was stable and safe. Crew members whispered about how different this was from everything they knew. The Armada had always believed that power came from strong shields and fast weapons. But here was a ship that didn't rely on either, yet it felt stronger than any warship they had ever faced. Its strength came from control, not aggression. From understanding, not dominance. The leaders asked the Terran ship why they made everything so open and clear. The Terran ship replied with a simple idea. When a civilization explores the galaxy, trust is more important than fear. It said that sharing knowledge built safer futures than hiding it. This idea surprised many of the Armada's officers. They had never heard of a species that approached powerful fleets without caution or secrecy. For the first time in a long while, the Armada began to question their own beliefs. They started to wonder if their long history of dominance had made them too confident, maybe even too closed. If a peaceful ship could appear in their space without any warning, perhaps the galaxy was bigger and more complex than they had imagined. The conversation continued for hours. Scientists on both sides discussed energy stability, safe travel, environmental effects on space, and the balance between exploration and protection. The more they talked, the more they realized they weren't that different. Both civilizations wanted safety. Both wanted to avoid unnecessary risks. Both cared about understanding the universe rather than controlling it. As this exchange grew deeper, one of the Armada's senior leaders made a private observation to the others. The Terran vessel wasn't showing off. It wasn't trying to impress them. It was simply doing what it was built to do, explore responsibly. That alone made it more impressive than any victory the Armada had ever achieved. Eventually, the Terran ship asked if the Armada had ever studied the long-term effects their own travel methods had on the galaxy. The leaders fell silent. In truth, they had never questioned it. They had always assumed that their engines, their fields, and their methods were normal and safe because everyone else used similar systems. The Terran ship gently explained that certain older travel systems could slowly destabilize regions of space if used heavily over many years. This idea struck the Armada deeply. They had traveled through countless sectors, conducted countless operations, and explored countless regions. The thought that some of their actions might have unintentional effects was something they had never considered. It wasn't an accusation, it was simply information. But it mattered. The Terran ship then made an unexpected offer. It said it was willing to share a small piece of stabilizing technology, a method that could help repair and protect regions of space from natural or artificial strain. The Armada leaders were stunned. No one offered such gifts, especially not to fleets known for their unmatched strength. They asked why the Terrans were offering this so openly. The Terran ship replied that responsible exploration meant helping others avoid mistakes, not letting them learn the hard way. It said that a safer galaxy benefited everyone. That line felt almost like a gentle teaching moment. The leaders exchanged glances, realizing they had never thought of peace in such simple terms. There was long internal debate. Some high-ranking officers wondered if accepting the offer would make the Armada look weak. Others argued that understanding new technology was more valuable than pride. In the end, the leaders agreed to accept. And that decision, in many ways, marked the turning point. Both sides began sharing information carefully and respectfully. The Armada scientists studied the stabilizing method with fascination. For the first time in many cycles, they felt like students again, learning something truly new. The Terran ship guided them patiently, never rushing, never holding back useful knowledge. After several days of peaceful exchange, the Terran ship announced that it had completed its survey. It had confirmed that the region was stable and safe. It thanked the Armada for their cooperation and expressed hope that their next meeting would be just as positive. Before leaving, it shared one final message that the Armada would remember for generations. Strength is not measured by how many battles you win. It is measured by how many battles you no longer need to fight. When the Terran ship activated its propulsion and disappeared, it left no shockwave, no distortion, no disturbance, just a quiet space and a quiet moment. The Armada watched the empty region, feeling something they had not felt before: perspective. They had met a visitor who changed their understanding without raising a single threat. From that day forward, the Armada slowly redefined its purpose. They shifted from being silent rulers to being careful protectors. They traveled not to display power but to ensure that space remained safe for all species. And whenever they doubted their path, they remembered the calm Terran battleship that rewrote their view of the galaxy. Without a single act of force, it became a story passed down through generations. A reminder that the universe was wider, wiser, and far more peaceful than they had ever imagined. And that sometimes the strongest change comes from the quietest arrival.